What's up guys, this is Yasin. So today we're going to be going over the best decks post Alliance Inside. There's only 30 decks, so it's not like this video is going to take forever, but it is still very important to watch all the way until the end. Don't be a bitch, and also like and subscribe. Okay, so we got 4 categories, right? The ones that are just completely over everyone else. The ones that you're basically prepping for, because we can kind of say that this format is dangerously close to like a tier 0 format, especially because of one deck in particular. Wink wink, right? And then we've got the worthy challengers, right? The decks that are so incredibly good just because they're good that they might randomly win the YCS, you know, just like Memento won in like a Raziel and Malice dominated format. Maybe something else could actually win them. And then the decks that could top, but I don't think they're necessarily gonna win, and they kind of are at a disadvantage despite the fact that they don't actually suck. And the ones that I actually think you're definitely doing a misplay for playing them. So yeah, anyways, let's get right into it. The first one is Snake Eye, which obviously topped YCS Mexico City, so it's hard for me to like not acknowledge it. But that doesn't mean it's a good deck. It plays like a huge amount of bricks, not that many starters. I mean, technically it's not too bad, but it honestly feels like a Fiendsmith deck than anything else. So yeah, I don't really believe in this deck. I think it's kind of copium, and yeah, don't play this deck. Salamangreat also topped YCS Mexico City. By the way, just in case you guys didn't know, I was the player who played against the Salamangreat guy in top 32. So yeah, that was really cool. The guy was really nice and really good with his deck, which is why he was able to perform so well. So I think in the right hands, this is still a decent deck. I mean, it's always going to be a decent deck because it plays a lot of non-engine. It's quite consistent. I mean, it doesn't play a huge amount of bricks. So I think this deck is okay. But honestly, if you're playing it, you're really just hoping that things go your way. Otherwise, you are at a disadvantage, like I said. This deck is just like, other than the fact that it doesn't lose to Bestials, I can't really see the edge that it has, and also Bestials aren't even that popular. So yeah, who cares? Adignister, if you're playing this, you are absolutely crazy and delusional, because you could just play Malice instead, which is objectively better. You know, that also plays the broken Adignister cards without having to play the bad ones, so you're definitely doing something wrong. This deck has no appeal. It loses to the Chummies, Droll, Nibiru, and also it's mechanically very weak going second. And also, it's not even like you can say that if you win the dice roll, you win the match, because Malice can say that, but Adignister, I don't really think so. Yeah, I don't really feel super oppressed when I lose the dice roll against a deck like this, honestly. I mean, unless like you sack religiously, but bro, come on. You can say this to like every deck. That it's still a garbage deck. Mermail, yeah, this deck is absolutely fantastic, especially again in the right hands. Like I said, Christian Urena, the GOAT with the deck. He played incredibly well when I faced him at YCS Mexico City, and it allowed me to really see the power of this deck, like the actual true strength of Mermail when piloted by someone who knows exactly what he's doing, and it can really beat, you know, the Chummies, Droll, etc., Nibiru, whatever. So honestly, I think that this deck is good going first and second, and it can play Dominus Impulse, which is obviously something that works, that plays into its favor, because Dominus Impulse is probably the best hand shop right after, you know, like the Chummies this format. Okay, so the first deck in the best of the best would be Raziel Mitsurugi, not Pure Mitsurugi. I think Pure Mitsurugi would be like somewhere here, probably at the very top of could top, because I mean, it's not like a terrible deck. It's just like definitely worse than Raziel Mitsurugi, because I think the Mitsurugi cards, they're better to use as like ways to like bait stuff when you're going second, and you know, just power through like your opponent's board. Like Murakumo is like incredible, especially when you're chain blocking. But when that's all you're doing, it just feels like the deck doesn't do enough, especially going first. Like, you can lose the dice roll against Pure Mitsurugi, and if you're playing Raziel Mitsurugi yourself, you can just overwhelm your opponent. So it's like, what are you doing? You're still playing the exact same amount of good cards as the Raziel Mitsurugi deck, like 3 Habakiri, 3 Prayers, etc. But what else are you playing in your deck? Bricks. There you go. That's the reason why it's Pure Mitsurugi. It's just like you're playing more bricks, you're playing Dominus Impulse, which is fine, but Raziel Mitsurugi, it's like the best of both worlds. You're playing the good Mitsurugi cards, you're minimizing on the bad ones, and then you're also playing the good Raziel cards, and you're minimizing on the cards that you don't need, like no plugin, no star potentially. If you want to side it instead, that's fine. And you can also just, you know, ignore like a lot of bricks that the pure decks usually play, and just also still fit in like a decent amount of non-engine. And the deck is just like a mechanical, like board breaker deck, even when you draw 0 non-engine. So I really do think that Raziel Mitsurugi is an incredible option right now. And like I said, even though it may not be like the best deck of the format, I still think it's incredibly good, and you have to prep for this if you are going to an event this format. Argus Stars, yeah, no, I still don't really believe in this deck, honestly. And also, it's not like there's a huge Argus Stars community right now or anything, but this deck is just going to keep getting better as we get the new support. But Konami just keeps trolling Argus Stars every single set. It's like one new Argus Stars cards all the time. It's never like a bunch of cards So there's still only 2 monsters, like 3 traps, and like 2 spells or something. That's a joke. Like, how can you build a deck like this? You might as well just play any other trap deck. It makes no sense to me. True Draco, garbage, obviously. I mean, enough said. There's there's really nothing else for me to elaborate on. Like, you make a monster spell Masterpiece, it gets impermed. You make like a monster trap Masterpiece, it gets hit by anything, Malice in the Mirror, or like Droplet, or whatever. And you make a spell and trap Masterpiece, well, you just forget about it. You're beyond dead in like 2 seconds, so it's not like the same threat it used to be. And other than Masterpiece, what are you relying on to win? Like Floodgates? Yeah, that's a nice game plan you got there. Anyone else can do that, so it's not really like True Draco has that much going for it. But at least Abyss Dweller is banned. Still doesn't change the fact that this deck is Burger King by round 3. Okay, so Malice obviously is the best deck of the format. This deck is by far the most proactive and oppressive, because you basically have to just deck build with that deck in consideration, which speaks volume on how broken it is. So, and I've said this in the past, but when I lose the dice roll against Malice, I feel like on game 1, at the very least, my main win condition is winning the lottery and praying to God that my opponent bricks and makes, at the very most, a half board, because the full board is unmanageable with Engine, and if you don't draw like the right hand traps, and if they don't resolve, I mean, you're beyond screwed. Like, your Fuas can get ashed, and then Droll is not really good against this deck at all. Yeah, so that's kind of mediocre for you. And also Nibiru is not great. It's just like, nothing feels good against this deck. It's too good. And going second, I mean, it still plays like 19 whatever non-engine, so it's not like you can say that this deck is garbage. And also now there's more extenders than before. Like, there's Hair, there's the Adignister cards. So, like, you can stop the normal summon, and it's not like they have, you know, they have to have, like, Underground, Terraforming, or Gold Star to push. No, they have, like, more things now. So it's really bad, and also the consistency issue, I think it got fixed for the most part. This deck is significantly better than it was, like, 1 or 2 formats ago. And if the deck was stopping a lot before, imagine now. Yeah, it's kind of concerning. Mathmech, very bad deck, but I will say that this deck is probably going to be getting better in the future. It's just that this deck has like 1 circular in a format where Droll is everywhere. And also, like, circular getting unbanned doesn't change the fact that there's no link decoder. So it's like, you feel like this deck is like back to where it was back in the days, but it's really not the case. Because when circular was a 1, link decoder was also playable. But now it's like no link decoder and only 1 circular. Like, it's actually worse than back like 2 years ago in a format that wasn't as oppressive. So, like, Mathmech has absolutely nothing going for it. It's just unplayable. I'm sorry, but it's the sad reality. 6 Samurai, another garbage deck. I mean, that one actually goes there. It has consistency issues. It's probably terrible going second. I don't know. It's just a lot of people overhype this deck for some reason. They say, obviously, because they're going first when you go uninterrupted is FTK, but realistically, almost any deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! When they go first, they can do a lot. So it's not really like you can say that 6 Samurai has like a particular edge, so unfortunately I don't really believe in it. Eldritch is for sure a deck that could top it. It's a deck that can play like 12 hand traps. You can play like Imperm, Dominus Purge, Dominus Impulse, and Psalms of the Kings. A lot of people have said, oh, but how do you win when you impulse your opponent? That makes no sense. I actually hate the fact that people are, I don't really know the term, but they're like so fixated on Dominus Impulse, and they're not really understanding that Dominus Purge is not any better, because if you use that same logic, then you also can't use Angel Kaido, because it's a dark monster. So you may as well just say the same thing with Purge, but nobody's saying that. So it makes no sense. And also in Eldritch, honestly, the monster effects, they don't really matter all that much, because, you know, you got like infinite ways of just summoning back your monsters, and when you floodgate the hell out of your opponent, that's not really what matters that much. So I don't really think you have to care, especially if like your opponent can't play and you just whatever kill on like turn 3. So I think this deck is like cool and all, and it doesn't lose to your opponent's non-engine at all, unlike Odeon, which we will be covering, of course. Fire King, I actually think this deck is really good, and the reason why I say this is because obviously, well, it got hyped very recently, thanks to Dinkabu and stuff. Very recently, whatever, you understand what I'm trying to say. But this deck, I think, obviously on top of playing Dominus Impulse, which is something that Mermail also does, it can play a huge amount of non-engine. It's very good at grinding, and it's also very good at adapting itself to like different situations. Like your side deck could theoretically have like 9-12 cards for Malice, and then whatever else for other matchups. And honestly, I just think this deck is good into like basically everything. It's not like because the cards that are good against this deck, they're not really seeing too much play. It's not like people are randomly playing Soul Release. So honestly, I think you should be fine. And also Fueros is played in like everyone's main deck, and this deck doesn't really care at all. Like, oh no, Ulcanix special from special summoning the Garunix from deck, draw 1 card. You can just like pass turn there and just not do anything after that. So it has like backup plans to everything. I think it's a great deck. Material Reactor, yeah, no, I don't really believe in it. I mean, nobody has played it either, so I don't think it's a deck that could top the YCS whatsoever. Heraldic Beast, I definitely wouldn't put it in the worthy challenger section just because feels like a worse, like, Raziel Mitsurugi deck. Like, the only edge that this deck has is that when your X Raziel dumps, I mean, when you have X Raziel, you actually dump a powerful monster on turn 1, and you can beat Ash. You can go Chilling 1 X, Chilling 2 Patriarch, and it gets you, like, crazy advantage. But then again, you have to waste your normal summon on Stat Whale instead of Ice Raziel, which feels terrible. You have to play a huge amount of fake cards in your extra deck, so your deck doesn't feel real at all. And also, if you're doing the Ouroboros hand loop, I don't know, it looks like really whack. I don't know, it just, there's so many normal summons, way too many Heraldic Beast cards, a lot of bricks as well. It's a powerful deck. I'm not saying that it's weak, but I'm saying that it's not the kind of deck that I would trust for a YCS. But then again, it's a deck that could top, and it also has access to Harpy's Featherstorm because Griffin, this guy right here, he's a Winged Beast, which is awesome. Not really. I'm not happy about that. Dragon Ruler. This deck is anywhere between the very bottom of could top and at the top of Burger King by round 3. But honestly, I think I'm going to be putting it here. Unfortunately, this deck, it's going to be really hard to top a YCS with. Obviously, if we're talking about regionals, that's a different story because there's less rounds. So obviously, there's a bigger margin of error. Like, you can get unlucky like once or twice and it's fine. But in a YCS, bro, there's a lot of rounds. It's gonna be really painful for you, to like constantly win against like Malice and stuff. You don't play too much non-engine. You go second, you're kind of screwed because this deck plays especially just, you know, it's kind of like Tyr and Lightsworn where you're just like power through boards with gas, which is, I mean, it's a cool concept for sure. It's a very high ceiling deck and it's also quite consistent, I'm not gonna lie. And you could theoretically just go heavier on the Tenpai cards. But then again, why would you play Dragon Ruler when you can just play Tenpai instead? I don't really know too much. Cyber Dragon. Clearly, I think that this deck is here because the new support is utter garbage, right? Obviously, that makes sense. Cyber Dark Wyrm has no business being once per duel. I don't understand why Konami really feels the need to just randomly make cards way worse when they have no business being as bad. I mean, when you look at Fiendspit Engraver, for example, the card has a powerful effect and it's once per turn. So why the hell would Cyber Dark Wyrm, which, I mean, it's just another brick in their deck, I guess you can say, has to be once per duel? I don't know. And Cyber Your Mangder, whatever, one of the worst cards I've ever read. Like, it's actually just unplayable. Oh no, it searches polymerization. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, unfortunately, the deck doesn't play that card. So Cyber Your Mangder basically just does nothing. And also, it's only playable when you're going second. Fan-freaking-tastic. So yeah, Cyber Dragon, very bad. But since I love this deck, and since I'm biased, and since I don't care about anything you guys have to say, I'm gonna put it here. And also, if you get stupid comments of people wondering, but Yak-san, you're so biased, why is Cyber Dragon there? Now I know who didn't watch the video. Okay, Ancient Fairy Dragon. Oh yeah, no, actually no, this might actually be the worst deck. I think this is like, this managed to like be even worse than Six Samurai, Argus Stars, and everything else. Because this one actually has no game plan at all, right? Unless you draw like Regulus, which is the only starter in your deck. Everything else is dog shit. This is one of the worst decks I've ever seen. Absolutely no starters, zero consistency, no ceiling. Everything about it is garbage, plays a huge amount of bricks. I can keep going for years. Absolute trash. Blue Eyes. It's at the very bottom of Worthy Challenger because I really do believe that there's no way in hell nobody's going to be playing Blue Eyes. Like, at least like a couple of people are going to be doing well with the deck. I think at the very least one Blue Eyes will be in top cut every single YCS because it's still a deck that can play a huge amount of net-engine. I don't think it's in a great position because this is a Purge deck instead of an Impulse deck. In this format, Impulse is significantly better. It plays very well into Mitsurugi Ritual. I mean, it's very good against that. And it's also very good against Malice. Whereas Purge, whatever. It's not that great. And also when you Purge, you also can't Typhon. So it's just a little weird. It's not like the end of the world, but still. And also Veiler, like, it's a hand trap that you can easily search. But like, is Veiler really good against Malice when they can easily dodge it and play through it? Not really. So I don't know. And also, like, your Blue Eye Spirit Dragon being able to negate graveyard effects, Malice doesn't really care because they kind of have, like, zero graveyard effects. So, again, like, you can go first, basically go uninterrupted, and still actually lose, which is very sad. So, yeah, Blue Eyes, unfortunately, it's not, like, the perfect timing for the deck, but I still think that it's not a bad deck. And also check out my Blue Eye spreadsheet in case you guys are interested in like other ways to play the deck. There's you know, Blue Eye Fiendsmith is a really nice option, and I have a bunch of combos on it. It's on my website, yacineygo.com, for only 25 US. Really recommend checking it out. Anyways, next up we've got Fiendsmith-based strategies in general. I think that it's kind of like interchangeable with like Fire King. The grind game is really good, just like Fire King, and also there's a bunch of one-card starters. You can play a huge amount of hand shops, but then again, it plays very poorly into Whitebinder. I guess Bestials are not really part of the equation because Druid's Worm is a one-of, and not a lot of people are playing Bestials because Malice is very popular, and Malice doesn't lose to Bestials, so obviously that makes sense. That's actually a good thing for Fiendsmith, if anything. But like, just like not enough ceiling. Like, Caesar is a great card, don't get me wrong, but it feels like it's like the only thing that this deck really does sometimes. Like Caesar DS Ire at most, really? Like the control version just doesn't feel great. It feels more of like an engine that you gotta play in other decks, but if you play like Bestial Fiendsmith, your deck makes zero sense right now. I think it's terribly positioned into Malice. Bestial Fiendsmith, I mean, obviously, right? Yeah, enjoy drawing those Saroniers and Druid's Worm and stuff like that against a deck that literally just thrives off of banishing cards. So yeah, that's a little pathetic. I think Fiendsmith Primite is probably the best way to play this deck though, because the Primate engine is remarkable. It's just like, you're basically taking two engines that recycle themselves back infinitely, recruit themselves back from the graveyard, so that's really nice. You never run out of gas. Evil Twin, I actually think this deck is worse than these decks, unfortunately. It's still a deck that could top. There is absolutely a world in which one Evil Twin could squeeze in top cut. I do believe in it, but the issue that I have with this deck is that it has literally no win condition through Fueros. If you go normal summon one of the starters, affect the special from deck, you get Fuad. It's game. I tried everything. I tried Mannequin Cat, target the Fua, and then summon like whatever, a win monster like Spellcancel. That's garbage. You still give your opponent 3 draws, and then you can make like a Requiem and then give your opponent 3 draws for like 1 Paradise Interruption. It's really pathetic. You can Droll yourself, which is cool. So you have got Ash and Droll to beat the Fuas, and also Perelia doesn't actually beat this deck, so that's really nice. But like, it's just like, are you really playing a deck that also just only has like normal summons and like extenders that can only be summoned when you control a monster? To me, it doesn't compute. Like, I'm not really satisfied with what this deck is trying to do. And it feels like when you don't have hand shops, the probability of you cracking like a half board is basically 0%. Again, like you go normal summon a monster, special summon a monster from deck. I'm not saying that Imperm is gonna stop this deck, because honestly when it goes first, it's actually quite hard to stop, and it can also beat Nibiru, even though it's kind of complicated. But this deck going second is where I have like issues. Even if you can play a lot of hand shops, it's just such a weak engine by itself, and I feel like this is not the perfect timing to play a deck like this. Even if you play the Sprite engine in the deck, it's not going to make too much sense. You can play the Fiendsmith engine, but then again, you're just playing harder into cards that you shouldn't be losing to. So yeah, that is an issue for me. It also loses to Meows because you do summon back from the graveyard quite a lot, honestly. Pure Raziel, I think that this deck is actually a worthy challenger. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I think this deck is not bad. And the reason why I think that is because I think it's one of the only decks that is well positioned into Malice because of the huge amount of non-engine they can play. And also, since you're not playing Mitsurugi cards, you're basically never losing to Impulse, which is good, because this deck loses harder to Purge on the Duo Drive than it loses to Impulse. But again, it does have consistency issues, and if you start playing Copium cards like 7th Ascension, or Small World, or the Shark Engine is not like super Copium, but 7th Ascension is also not Copium. Small World definitely is if you're playing 3. Now you're actually randomly losing super hard to Droll, so I don't know. It's again, like, collateral damage. Why would you play this when you can just play Raziel Mitsurugi and kind of have like the same appeal, but have a deck that just has more options and is better inherently going second, again, just with engine, because if you draw like all the Raziel cards in the world, it's still not enough to crack a Malice board, so that's a big problem for me. And also it's a deck where you can't really play Nibiru and stuff like that because it'll conflict with X, and that's kind of like the only real thing that you're doing, whereas Raziel Mitsurugi, no, you can actually Ritual Summon, you can Link Summon, stuff like that. This deck feels like it has more options overall. Like, again, it's obvious, but whatever. White Forest, it's actually a decent deck. This deck, when it goes first, it'll FTK the crap out of you, which is nice. But when it goes second, it'll cry a lot because it has a pretty weak engine naturally. So your LZ kind of has to resolve, otherwise, good luck. Your Sylvie doesn't really have to resolve all too much, and it's actually very easy to beat to bait hand shops with Sylvie getting negated. You're like, okay, cool, I hard drew the tails anyways, or I hard drew LZ. But I don't know, it's just like a lot of bricks as well. It's like 7 or 8 terrible cards. The Azamina engine is like super card hungry, like you got a discard for Witch. for Deception, even though you contribute the Witch or like the monster that you bring back from the grave with their own effect. It's cool and all, but it's just like, it doesn't feel great. And also it loses super hard to Perulia and Droll. I don't think it loses too hard to Fua, actually. That's not the end of the world, because you can still go for like Diabellstar Vengeance and make a very good health board. And if anything, I'll give this deck that. This deck is great at doing solid health boards that are still oppressive enough, because Diabellstar Vengeance is a custom card, one of the best cards I've ever read in my life. It's like destroy a card and also summon like an illusion or spellcaster synchro tuner from your extra deck if you control 2 or more Diabell cards on the field. So it can even be like the Diabell monster cards that are in your spell and trap zone that you placed with Poplar or the White Forest, the new level 4 synchro tuner that can quick sync and Snake Eyes Execute Dragon. So it has like infinite options. If you go first uninterrupted, you are beyond the FT King your opponent. And also it feels really nice to play a deck that doesn't lose too hard to Lancia. But if your opponent randomly main decks Lancia, he can't Lancia you so that you can't special summon Diabellstar Vengeance, and then you lose like 2 disruptions from your end board. And also you can't draw with Wanted, but it's not like the end of the world, who cares? I don't even know why I'm saying this, I'm just rambling at this point, but it's not even super important. More of the story, White Forest is a good deck, and I do think it's a deck that will top the YCS. Absolutely, I do believe in it. Tachyon is not bad. It's probably there. It just feels like a worse Tenpai Dragon, honestly. But it can search Lancia, which is cool because it can search 7 Tachyon off of Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Primal, which is very easy to access with Schwarzschild Infinity Dragon into like drag Luxion plays and stuff. It can easily OTK, but going first, it doesn't really feel like it has like a real game plan. It's just like, whatever are you doing? Like making a rank 8 and then call it a turn or something? Unless you're playing like the actual Galaxy Eyes Photon cards, in which case you have space for less non-engine, so I don't know. I feel like someone very smart would have to play this deck in order to top. Obviously, you can use the exact same argument for everyone else, but the reason when I say this, it's because not a lot of people play those decks. Whereas for Malice, I feel like you can be a dumbass and probably top the YCS just because the deck is broken, and also because numbers will eventually just, you know, do their magic, you know, because if like 1,000 players show up at a YCS and play Malice, clearly we're gonna have like all kinds of everything. Whereas if like 3 players play Galaxy Eyes, oh sorry, like Tachyon, whatever, then like the maths aren't really against you, but the maths aren't really in your favor. Whatever, you understand what I'm trying to say. Like I said, Yubel, not really good. Actually, very poorly positioned. There's way too many hand shops right now. But yeah, probably at the bottom. Probably here. I mean, it's still a powerful deck when it goes first. So yeah, probably whatever. It's not like Burger King Turbo by round 3. So I'm still gonna keep it there. Okay, yeah, Memento is insane. Definitely deserves to be here. The issue that I have with this is that it plays insanely poorly into Malice because, you know, banishing non-targeting is really rough. Like, even if you got, like, I don't know, like, Bone Party, Chain You, you're gonna have to, like, add to your hand instead of special summoning. So if you special summon the Tatsunoto Shigo, it's kind of rough. I don't know, it's just, and also there's way too many disruptions. This deck doesn't have enough space for, like, non-engine, otherwise, like, you're really gonna have to cut down on consistency, and then this is where you can start breaking like crazy. So, I don't know. I still think it's a great deck, though, because when it goes first, there is almost a 0% chance you lose, unless you get hit by, like, Perulia or Meows, or sometimes Droll and Logbird actually can hurt, but Fua doesn't actually hurt you all too much, so that's really cool for you. Odeon is, without the shadow of a doubt, a deck that can top. My problem with Odeon is that it's a trap deck with all the properties of a non-trap deck. So, like, it's a trap deck that loses to, like, Veiler and the Imperm on the normal summon. It, like, loses to Ogre on the field spell. It loses to, like, stupid things that I don't really think you should be losing to. It randomly loses to Droll for no good reason. Whereas when you look at, like, Eldritch... What the heck did I just do? When you look at Eldritch and Labyrinth, those decks don't actually lose to, like, most hand traps, really. Like, Eldritch doesn't really lose to, like, Purge, for example. This deck can. And Impulse, whatever. I mean, obviously, that's gonna cover everyone. The card is insane. But yeah, whatever. Odeon just, I don't know. It's also not the kind of deck that can just go set 5 and then crack a board. So many, like, garbage cards that you have to play. But at the same time, the reason why I'm ranking it high is because a lot of people will play it. Even though I actually think this is, like, by its mechanics, one of the worst trap decks that you can play. And honestly, if I'm being paired up against Odeon, I'm not, like, super scared just because the deck just doesn't feel, like, super insane, honestly. Yeah, whatever. Crystron is probably gonna be somewhere... here, actually, maybe. Or here. Hey, am I biased? Look, all I can say is get access to my Crystron spreadsheet today for only 20 US. You can also master Crystron. It's on my website again. Very first link in the description box below. I actually love plugging my my spreadsheet every single time I talk about this deck. Shameless plug, of course. I'm proud of it. But yeah, no, this deck, I actually do believe in it. I mean, I'm actually the only person on Earth who's managed to top back-to-back YCSs with this deck. One of them when Raziel was basically at full power. And then another one, like, in the weird format that we had at YCS Mexico City. Now, obviously, there's more Malice than ever, which is not bad for Crystron. But there's also Raziel Mitsurugi, which is bad for Crystron. So that's the only reason why I think that the deck downgraded. Otherwise, it would probably be over here. But also, by representation, I think it'll have less numbers. So it's probably not going to be, like, too high. But I still think it's a great deck, for sure. Regenesis Kashtira. Now, I'm not gonna lie, yeah, this deck, I actually do believe in it. I think it's really cool and it'll be good over time, but it's not the kind of deck I can actually really see doing super well, unfortunately. So I actually think it's worse than these decks. Tenpai Dragon, whatever, I mean, it's better than Tachyon, but who cares? And then Labyrinth, if anything, it's probably the best trap deck right now. Maybe... I mean, it's definitely better than Odeon. Like, you're not gonna tell me that Odeon that loses to, like, random BS is, like, better than this. And like I said, Eldritch, I actually do think it's insane. Personally, I actually think Eldritch is like the best trap deck. I think this deck is cracked, but whatever, people are gonna disagree, which is completely fine. But yeah, no, Labyrinth, I think, obviously, because of the fact that there are always like very competent players that pilot Labyrinth very well, they're gonna give a very good rep to this deck, which is absolutely awesome. But I think that's pretty much it for the tier list. For the most part, I think I'm relatively satisfied. Honestly, I think I should probably have like 2 sections for the worthy challengers, like maybe divided by 2 so that some of these decks are gonna go like a little more down, but I still think that there are decks that are most likely very well positioned into topping the YCS and really could win, whereas the decks that are in the could top section, I'm actually gonna be kind of shocked if I even see one of them topping. So yeah, these decks just have like a higher, I guess, likelihood of just doing well, I think, overall, in my opinion. Yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.